Hey, it's Andrew Downs. I'm proud to support Three Beards Media, and I would love to work with you. If you need merchandise for your company, organization, band, softball team, whatever, I can help. From name brand apparel to promotional items, large orders or small, online stores, and more, I can help your brand stand out. AKC Marketing is local, based in Johnston, and we are an employee-owned business, so our costs are low and our turnaround times are fast. But most importantly, we give you personal service to make sure you get exactly what you're looking for. Email me at andrew@akcmarketing.com or find me on social media, and let's make some cool stuff together. Now sit back and enjoy this Three Beards Media podcast.
All right, everybody, welcome back into the Hawk's Eye View. I'm Andrew Barber here with Drew Shipley from the AKC Marketing Studios. Thanks, as always, to Andrew Downs for sponsoring this Three Beards Media podcast. And Drew, it just feels good to be back after a couple of months of taking a break. How you doing?
Do we technically call this season 2? Because, I mean, we started in football season, right, last year? So, like, do we call this season 2, episode 1? Like, how do we break it up? Or does it really matter?
This is our much anticipated premiere of season 2 of the Hawk's Eye View, because we started around this time last year. So we're reaching we've already probably crossed our 1-year anniversary, I think.
Yeah, we're getting pretty close, Andrew. To answer your question, I've been pretty good, taking that summer hiatus. We didn't really have a whole lot to talk about on the Iowa Hawkeye front, if we're being honest. Some things going on, summer camp. Position battles. Big Ten Media Days is coming up next week, I believe. They go on Wednesday. I believe it's slated for first up, I believe. So looking forward to hearing what Kirk Ferentz and the boys have to say. It's kind of interesting. I was listening to our opening there with Andrew Downs, AKC Marketing. I reached out to him about making some glasses, some like rocks glasses for me and my bachelor party, which shockingly is coming up in 7 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
All the boys are coming out to Ocean City for a 4-day weekend, but for like a gift or whatever. And now I just spilled it to, like half of our audience, because my friends are probably listening, but it doesn't matter. Anyway, but college football is even sooner than that, Andrew. We're 6 weeks out, 5 weeks out if you count week 0. So like, I'm pretty pumped for that and to see where the season goes.
Yeah. Me too. I heard Chris Shipley is going to bake us a cake for our 1-year anniversary, so that's cool.
Really?
Yeah. No, I'm kidding. I actually, Chris.
We don't want Chris baking shit.
Yeah, I don't know what Chris's baking skills are like. Anyways, that's not the main topic at hand. We have a special guest tonight. We're bringing in the face of KXNO, the legend himself. He needs no introduction if you pay any attention to local sports radio in Central Iowa or Drake Bulldogs athletics. Maybe you've been to a basketball game at the Knapp Center. You've seen this guy a few times. His name is none other than Sean Roberts. Sean, we are bringing you in. Thanks for being here tonight. How are you doing?
What's up, boys? Happy to be here. I don't know the route that you guys want to go with the conversation, but I'm open to anything. Appreciate the kind words as well. But yeah, so let's do the damn thing. I mean, Drew's been messaging me throughout my entire show, and it's funny because now when I think anything, and this is what Drew's done to me, because now whenever we get on the conversation of Orioles or Nationals or anything out there, I'm 1,000% positive that I'll get some sort of message from Drew. And was it John Means? Is that the one that
John Means the last no hitter for the Orioles, man? Yeah.
And see, like I wouldn't have. I totally. The only pitcher I can think of when it comes to the Orioles is Mike Mussina. So, or I guess Corbin Burns now. But yeah, I was blanking on that one.
That wasn't even the most famous thing John Means did that season. He then got caught with the sticky stuff and got thrown out of the game shortly after the no hitter, and then had his first of now 2 Tommy John surgeries. So he's having a rough go the last 5 years, but. Yeah. Hey, sorry to slide into your DMs like that, man.
Just no. I'm all for it. I even knew when we were talking about it. I'm like, I guarantee we're gonna get something from Drew here. So.
100%.
It's all good. All good. Man. I appreciate the interaction there.
I'm surprised you don't have an in-depth knowledge of Orioles pitchers, Sean.
It's not. Listen, I know this much, at least over the last 15 years, if not longer. It's not a. It's been not a good scene from the pitching staff out there in Baltimore. So outside of maybe a guy or two.
Right. Why does the name Orel Hershiser keep coming to my mind?
I don't know. I don't think.
Okay. Why do
Orioles
play for the Baltimore?
That's great.
But Grayson Rodriguez is the only other one I can name. Gray Rod. But
Gray Rod is our solid number 2 pitcher, but they definitely need to get another one. Like Sean and I bounced this back amongst one another last year about what the cost of Dylan Cease would be. I'll go ahead and give you Jackson Holiday for Garrett Crochet straight up.
Done. Let's do it. Do it. I'm going to be so mad when they trade Crochet. That's going to bother me. But I'm to the point now where I'm tired of the Sox like trading the guys that they should probably just build around. But crappy organization that continues to do crappy things, so they'll trade them.
That's unfortunate.
It is.
But it isn't why we brought you here, Sean.
If you guys want to talk baseball, we can
talk baseball all we want, except the disappointing Iowa Hawkeyes baseball season, whatever. That was awful, and that pitching was terrible as well. But no, actually, I wanted to lead off with you, Sean. I know what brought you to Des Moines, and that was Grandview and baseball. What has necessarily kept you and your family in Des Moines? Why does Des Moines work for the Roberts family?
Well, I mean, for me, I'll start with me. For me, it's I have an opportunity here to do everything I've always wanted to do. I had 2 dream jobs as a kid, and one was to be a Major League Baseball player. And quickly in high school, you learn, I don't know a right-hander throwing 87 is going to get the job done as far as, to be able to go to that next level. I knew I was going to be able to play college baseball. But actually, and this, I don't know if I've ever really talked about this, but my freshman and sophomore year of high school back in Illinois, I was like, hey, you know what? I'm going to go into the Navy. Every Roberts guy has gone into the Navy. None of them have gone to college. They were my dad, my grandpa, my great-grandpa. They were all in the Navy. And I thought, okay, well, that's going to be my route too. I'm not smart enough to get into college without, sports essentially. So I just thought the Navy was going to be that route. Go to about my junior year, I started getting letters, and my dad had a conversation with me and was pretty much, if you have the chance to go play college baseball, you're going to go play college baseball. And that ended up, what happened. But I had 2 dreams. It was Major League Baseball or hosting a sports radio show. And when the baseball thing was not going to happen, and I was like, okay, I'll play college baseball. I want to focus. I want to get to a place that I think I have the best opportunity to get into that career. And when I was going through my recruitment process, Grandview was the one that had a broadcasting program, and it was close to home. I wanted to get away from home, but not to where I was going to have to, get on a plane. If there was an emergency or anything to happen, I could just get in the car and drive 5 hours. And and that's how I ended up at Grandview, was the broadcasting program, and I liked the baseball aspect of things. And I actually could have played at a higher level back home, but I chose to go NAIA with Grandview. I passed up on a couple Division II schools, but a lot of that was they didn't have my major, and they didn't have, baseball wise, I don't know if it would have worked with what I was trying to accomplish. But so fast forward, go through my now 10 years in October at KXNO, which is crazy to think about. And this is just where I'm happy, man. I think I've adapted to the Iowa life. My wife and I are both not from here, but we love it here. And, I don't plan on ever leaving. I don't think my wife plans on ever leaving. Now, I'm not saying that can't happen or other opportunities don't happen, but I love it here. And Des Moines works for us. It's, my wife owns 2 dance franchises, one here in Des Moines and one in Iowa City. And so like her businesses are here. So, I mean, we love it. We love it. And, it's in the middle for both our families. With her being from Kansas, it's about a 3-hour and 40-minute drive to her dad's farm down in Paola, Kansas. And it's about a 4.5-hour drive for me to get to my parents in Illinois. So we're kind of smack dab in the middle. So, but Des Moines works. We both have our dream jobs, and we're happy, and yeah. And ultimately that's all that matters.
Absolutely.
So
great. Yeah, and you also helped out with Football Friday Night. So we're just bringing on all the Football Friday Night connections. You're a part of the show.
Football Friday Night was my start, man. It was. Yeah. I remember I was interning that summer of 2012. I was interning, and I think Joe Quinn was the guy who was kind of helping run Football Friday Night, and my internship was coming up, or like to end, and that was the last thing I needed to do to graduate at Grandview. And he was like, "Hey, what would you think about being a sideline reporter?" I was like, "Let's do it, like effing right." And got brought on as a sideline reporter and part-time guy, and loved it. And then a year later, get hired, and eventually get over to KXNO, and the producer spot for Football Friday Night opened up. And I think I did that from, I want to say 2016 until 2020. So I did it for like almost 5 seasons. But had a blast with all you guys, and Joe Stacy, who's the man. I love that dude so much, man. He's just such a joy to be around. Josh, Loftholtz, like he was great as well. Just so many, like Andrew, like you, like so many great guys, man. I mean, Tyler Allen. There's so many guys I can think of right now,
Right.
But no, Football Friday Night was great, and it helped launch me to where I currently am right now, and that's why I'm so adamant about that show, because I think it's not only important from the community aspect and from the local standpoint and just the state in general, but it's great because it gives guys opportunities to do stuff that they might not be able to do, right? Like you work a full-time job, but you always wanted to do radio and do sideline stuff or whatever the case is. You get that chance. Right. And like Andrew, right? Like it can be a lot of fun, man. And you get to see different parts of the state and talk to different people and have fun and make it kind of your own deal, whatever game you're at. So I think it's very important, man. But yeah, Football Friday Night will always have a big part in my heart. KXNO After Dark, baby.
Yeah.
And it's back for 2024.
It is.
You 100% back for 2024. It might be even new and improved too. There might be some new things coming. It might be expanded. I don't know. If Joe Stacy, if you're listening, you can comment if you want to.
16.
But hopefully he's listening. But yeah, so that's our connection there, Sean. So we've had Andrew Downs on the show. We've got Sean on the show now, and so I'm loosely connected to KXNO as well through Football Friday Night, which is awesome. You and I actually spoke at the get together at Revelton. Drew, I'm sorry you couldn't make it. It was a good time. You missed
How
out.
dare you?
Travel conflicts, you know.
How dare you not make the trip?
Yeah.
It's so easy for you to get here.
I know.
Yeah, when we were talking at Revelton, Iowa football was in the midst of their offensive coordinator search, and you and I were both so sure that it was Paul Chryst, and then we ended up at a totally different place, getting Tim Lester. Just curious what you thought about the Tim Lester hire, all of that. I know you probably talked about it quite a few times on your show on KXNO, but I just wanted to see your thoughts kind of on Tim Lester and the upcoming Iowa football offense.
The Paul Chryst thing, I thought that was going to be a for sure deal. Just from some of the conversations that I had at that time with some people, and it just seemed like that's where it was trending. And I think everyone would have been like, okay, not the sexiest hire, but you're not going to get the sexiest hire, right? We're talking about the Iowa offensive coordinator job. We're not talking about the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys or anything like that, right? Like, so there's you kind of have to look at your expectations of things. But I did think Paul Chryst made sense. Him and Kirk Ferentz have a really good relationship, and he knows the Big Ten, and he knows what Iowa's all about, right? So it just seemed like a perfect fit, but it ended up not happening. They did go with Tim Lester, and that kind of took some people by surprise. People got worked up about it, and rightfully so. You're bringing in a guy that it didn't work at Western Michigan. So why should we be confident? Ultimately, we don't know what it's going to look like, right? And Tim Lester, I thought, nailed his press conference, his introductory press conference. I thought he did a great job, and he said all the right things and continues to say all the right things. But we're not going to know. And ultimately, we're not going to know until game 4 of the season. Like Lucas, the producer, talks about this on our show all the time, who's a big Iowa fan. Games 1 through 3, we learned this last year. I thought the way that season started, we were on the verge of Iowa's going to be putting up 35 to 40 points a game. Quickly learned that that wasn't the case, and that, those first 2 drives were, I don't want to say a fluke, but wasn't going to be the telltale sign of the season. But I do think Tim Lester, all we have to do right now is to be positive, and that's the beautiful thing about the off season and leading into the regular season is we don't have anything to go off of besides this guy looks great in practice, and here's what maybe they're working on, or what the off season, Cade McNamara says this, or whatever the case is. So when Lester was hired, he used to be the head coach of a Division III school in the Chicago suburbs, Elmhurst College. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't know that, right, until he was hired. So long story short, I'm talking to my buddies, right, back home, and we're, a couple of them went to Iowa, so they always reach out to me when it comes to Iowa things because they want to know what's going on and this and that. And so we're texting about Tim Lester, and our other buddy who didn't go to Iowa, who went to Elmhurst College to play baseball when we were in high school, actually got recruited by Tim Lester to play football. So he was getting recruited by Elmhurst College to do both. But so then right away, my brain's like, well, what's Tim Lester like? And honestly, he had nothing but great things to say about him. And that he thinks this is the guy that didn't end up playing for him, but from the recruiting process, thought he was a really good head coach. And probably if my buddy Danny wasn't going to play baseball, would have played football there and played under Tim Lester. But that was a little tie-in that gave me a little tidbit of information, just how, he wasn't a dick when he was recruiting him, or anything like that. Like, seemed like a really good dude. So I don't know. I think we just have to be optimistic. It's change. It's something. Right now we can say it's something new. We don't know ultimately what it's going to be like that first game, but I think you, as an Iowa fan, you're never going to be in the top 25 in offense, right? But I think a consistent conversation has always been, with the way the defense plays, with the way the special teams show up, finish 70th to 80th in offense, and you'll have a damn good team.
Right. Yeah, and I think a guy that you're describing who's nice in recruiting and not a jerk, right? That fits the Kirk Ferentz mold to a T.
Yeah, Yeah.
I mean, we thought Paul Chryst was a fit from that aspect, but it sounds like, based off of what you've heard and what other people have heard about Tim Lester or what I've read, nice guy, right? So that's a fit for the Kirk Ferentz mold to an absolute T.
Yeah, and you don't want to. I mean, it was a different sport, but I went through the recruiting process, and I can tell you, and this is baseball, so I mean, different sport, and this was 2000. I'll do my JUCO days, so 2008 when I was getting recruited out of my JUCO, and you could tell there was a difference in every coach, right? Like Lou Yasinich at Grandview was straight up, he was funny, and I just was like, I kind of want to like talk to this guy. I mean, and know more. Like he seemed like a great guy that you want to play with, right? Or play for. But there were coaches that were recruiting me that you could tell they just kind of had like this peacock mentality a little bit, and just, okay, I don't think playing for you is going to be very fun, right? And it's weird when you can get that just from a phone conversation or just meeting somebody. But like I said, from what I've heard with Tim Lester, it seems like that guy when he knows how to talk to people at least, and he's nice. But, can he dial up the right plays? And that's what we'll find out here pretty soon.
Yep. That's the biggest question. Like you said, no way to know until the season starts.
40 is the best. I just wanted to throw that in there.
Man, I got some fun stories about 40, but
I bet you do.
I think, one of the craziest things with 40 with me was, he's the reason I'm here. You're right. Like, he's the one that picked up the phone and called me, invited me out here on a visit. And, after my visit, we were 20 minutes down I-80, and I told my mom, I'm like, that's where I'm going to go to school. That's where I want to go. And so, I mean, 40 did a hell of a selling job, right? But then fast forward to a couple years ago when he announced his retirement on my radio show. Like, that's like a full circle moment, right? The guy that brought me here for me to play baseball and to get my broadcasting degree is now retired and announcing his retirement on my show. That was a wild moment.
That's cool.
Yeah, I don't know how much you know about him, Andrew, but legendary coach, 40
Hall of Fame coach,
excuse me. Over 40 seasons, I believe. Yeah, very nice guy. I went to Grandview as well, Andrew. I don't know if you knew that part, but
no.
No. I met Lou and a bunch of Grandview guys. Was Todd Bailey working there yet, Sean? When you went to school?
Just got my summer when I was wrapping up like my internship. I had like a couple broadcasting classes that I had to finish too to get my degree. So that summer of 2012, I believe, is when Todd got brought in. And so we had just met, and then I graduated, and now now Todd and I, like, he worked with me I hosted the Grandview Sports Awards, the Victor Awards. And so like Todd was my go-to on that whole thing.
That's good stuff.
Yeah. That was another like wild full circle moment. I'm sitting here going like, man, I graduated in 2012 and here I am hosting this athletic awards night for Grandview University, and I got Troy Plummer gives me my actual baseball jersey that I wore, at Grandview. Like, and for the record, for those listening, no, they did not retire number 23. They just happened to have the jersey that I actually wore in the spring season of 2012 that they still had for whatever reason, and presented it with me, which is super cool, and it's getting framed and put on my wall here in my basement. But yeah, so no, they did not retire number 23.
And I'm glad Grandview spared the extra jersey for you to have on your wall.
I mean, think about it though. It's like 12 years ago, right?
Yeah, man.
Still had it. So,
and they hadn't washed it either. That was the real interesting.
I think someone wore it after me. I think like one other player wore it after me or two, because I know they switched jerseys somewhere between like 2014, 2016, I think. So I think like one or two guys may have worn it after me, but yes, it was surreal when Plummer gave that to me. That was really cool.
That is pretty neat. All right. Well, I think we are going to take a quick break and hear from Revelton and Kyle Lehman at Wintrust, and we will be back with Sean Roberts after the break.
Making great tasting bourbon requires the perfect combination of ingredients, conditions, and time. The longer it rests, the better it tastes. Revelton Distillery's new single barrel bourbon is made from 80% corn, sourced 100% from Iowa farmers. And unlike mass-produced bourbons, each barrel of Revelton's single barrel bourbon is unique, proofed on when it tastes best. As they like to say, it'll be ready when it's ready. And to ensure the highest standards of quality and flavor, owners Rob and Christy Taylor oversee the production and bottling. Every single barrel. Iowa born, Iowa aged, Iowa bottled. Try the new single barrel bourbon from Iowa's own Revelton Distillery. ReveltonDistillery.com.
Are you in the market for a new house and unsure of the mortgage process? Want to know that you have someone looking out for you? Kyle Lehman from Wintrust Mortgage is a down-to-earth, knowledgeable lender who can be there for you in your corner. He can work with you in any of the 50 states and is just what you need to expand your home search. Kyle will work with you through the entire process with little to no work from you. Take the worry of the mortgage process out of the equation so that you can focus on looking for your dream home. Contact Kyle at www.wintrust.com/Kyle-Lehman or call him at 515-473-0546.
Thank you, as always, to both of those sponsors. Absolutely incredible long-term sponsors of the show. So thank you both, Revelton and Kyle Lehman. Drew, I'll kick it over to you. I'll let you pepper Sean with a few more questions here.
So actually, on a less serious note, Sean, have you played with or against the Hawkeyes? How is the black and gold looking in the video game I'm in? Do you know yet?
No, I have not. I've not played anything with Iowa yet. But the video game's incredible. It's so cool. Like it's funny because you sit there and like we talk about it on the show, right? And I know that there's a percentage of people out there that like, I don't give a rat's, about video games. Like, this is so stupid that so many, and like, not just our show, but I mean, Pat McAfee show, like everyone around the country is talking about it. Right. But there's reasons why. And it's because that game growing up for probably a lot of people, I know me, especially, like that game was my childhood. Like playing that, I played that every year it came out, bought it and played it and loved it. And then it gets taken away from you and you're like, oh, it's never coming back. And then, it comes back 10 years later and it's better than you could have ever imagined it to be. And from what you played the last time, it like that game sucks compared to this. Right. The graphics are incredible. The in-game presentation is incredible. I mean, it's just so surreal and so cool. A lot of what I've done so far is just I've played with Notre Dame and started that route. But we're working on some things on the KXNO side of things to get probably in a month to get kind of an online dynasty with listeners. They can sign up to try and play in our online dynasty, but the game's incredible. Highly recommend, if you're into college football, hey, play it. It's super cool.
So first off, I'm in, and I'm taking Army.
Well, hey, so here's kind of like the layout of what we're thinking about it, because Justin, me, and Lucas have been like, this is all like on us and our idea for it all, and we thought the best fair way that we could do it is to do online contesting in a sense. Like the first, I think we can do 32 teams. So we're going to do an Xbox league and a PlayStation league. Lucas is in charge of the Xbox and me and Justin are in charge of the PlayStation. So it'll be first 32 to sign up. And then that's what it is. It's probably the most fairest way we can do it. So that's the route we're gonna go. Because like we've had so many people like, I'm in. It's like eventually we're gonna get like 100 people that say we're in, and it's just easier this way.
Hear me out. So you said you had a month. Where did they go to college contest for an entry?
I do like that. How fun was that though?
That was awesome. It was electric.
Wasn't it so much fun? Like that became such a random segment that is now going to be something that we do, not for a whole hour, but like for like 10 to 12 minutes. You know, where hopefully we can get some like gift cards to give to winners and stuff like that. Lucas and I had so much fun doing that. Like that is one of those things like in radio, you want to like those type moments where something just organically happens. Because when we discussed it prior to the show, that's something like we'll do in the 5 o'clock hour. It was going to be me and him for like 5 minutes, and then we were going to move on.
Yep.
And then it turns into, well, let's invite some listeners and see what happens here. And then I'm not kidding you, our phone lines for the entire hour were full. And, you know, then you get into like one of those things, okay, do we move on or do we just run with this? It's one of 2 days in the entire year where there's like nothing happening. So let's just run with it and see where it goes, and takes up a whole hour. And now we got a segment out of it. So
it was pretty electric, not quite electric as Where the Hell is Trent Condon, but that.
Yeah, what I was listening to a little bit of that. I listened to that live and I went, what the heck is happening right now?
Right.
Like, did we lose Trent Condon?
Well, so I'll get some information here. So I had just got done, it was like 10:30. I just got done cutting a commercial. And so I had headphones in my hand. And I knew Lucas was producing because the boys were in Vegas. And it was like 10:55. And I walked in to the production or the producer studio. And just to see how like Lucas was doing, I was like, just want to say hey. And then schedule what time we're putting later. And Lucas is like, I haven't heard from any of them. I was like, what do you mean you haven't heard from any of them? I'm like, Ken is like he's like somewhere 2 hours prior to when he needs to be there. I was like, how have you not heard from anybody? He goes, I've texted Trent. I haven't heard from anyone. As we're having this conversation, I'm like, well, I mean, we got to go on the air. We're not going to put it in national programming. I got headphones, so I'll like, it's one of those, like, it's go time, right? As we're having that conversation, it's like 10:58, Ken calls on the hotline and he's like, I can't find Trent. I don't know where he is. I'm down. He's like, I'm down at the cabana, you know, at Stadium Swim, ready to do the show. I don't know where Trent Condon is. He's like, he's not answering anything. So I'm like, all right, Ken, like we're going on in like a minute. I'll bring it in. Like Lucas and I can have some back and forth, and then we'll go to you on the phone, and then we'll just like essentially go segment by segment to try and figure this whole thing out because no one knew where TC was. We get on the air, and it's one of those moments where you're sitting there going, I want to have so much fun with this and joke about it, right? But also at the same time, you want to make sure he's okay. He's in Vegas. You don't like he had a tweet that was out at like 3 a.m. So we're like my mind is going, this dude had the night of his life out in Vegas. And I was like, he overslept. That was my initial thought. Now, when Ken was on the phone with us on the air and he's like, guys, I'm going to get off the air. I'm legitimately worried about him. Like, that's where I was like, okay, like we're going to take a step back, you know, and just see what happens. So I text Justin like, hey, Lucas and I are doing the show essentially. If you want to come up here and just like shoot the shit with us for a little bit and, you know, we'll just see where this whole thing goes, but none of us can get a hold of Trent. We don't know where he is. So Justin's like, yeah, I'll be up in a little bit. Justin steps in the studio, goes, I just talked to Trent. I'm like, what do you mean you just talked to Trent? Where's he been? I'm like, he didn't answer for anybody else. He's like, yeah, he overslept and he's going to do the show. I'm like, okay, well, now that we know that he overslept, now it's full go. Now we're, but it also was some of the funnest radio. I'm telling you, like some of the funnest stuff is just like the most random, organic things, right? Where you're almost just like flying by the seat of your pants. Like that's how it was yesterday for us. We're just flying by. We don't know what names people are going to throw at us or whatever the case is. But like with TC, and that is such an unlike Trent Condon thing. Like TC and Ken they're so on top of their game and they're great dudes. And Trent is like the nicest human being in the world and will do anything for anybody. And so like that's where it was so out of character that we were like legitimately concerned that something had happened to him. I mean, Lucas called the front desk. He looked up the newspaper. He looked up, like he was trying to do, like he was on the phone with Circa Security, trying to do a wellness check. I got Heather texting me saying that, if need be, Paul has a contact with the Las Vegas Police Department. We can like knock on some doors. And then throughout all this, right?
This is my favorite part.
Well, like Murph sends Lucas a text about a man that got lost in Vegas, and Murph wasn't even listening to the show. He had no idea TC was missing. So Lucas gets this text, and he's like, "Oh, Murph just texted me an article for some random dude from Arkansas that got lost in Vegas or whatever the case was." But Murph had no idea, like, the gravity of the situation that time he had sent us a missing person in Vegas newspaper article. So, like, it was the most crazy 45 minutes ever. Like, but it's one of those, like, you can have fun with it and you can roll with it. And TC owned up to it, everything. And it was a lot of fun. And I'm glad, obviously, that he was okay. But when Ken, like, legitimately got worried, that we all got worried because, the fact that Ken wanted to get off the radio, that was a telltale sign that, all right, let's hold off on all the jokes. And then once he was okay, then it was now we can give him shit forever.
Oh, I'm sure that last hour plus baking in the sun on the roof of Stadium Swim, Trent Condon just sweating out the booze.
I texted him. And it's like one of those, as someone that has overslept, the last thing you want to do is draw attention to it, right? Like you don't want anyone tweeting about it. You don't want anyone talking about it because you're embarrassed, and you also don't want like the wrong people to see it.
Right.
That could eventually get you in more trouble. So I texted TC while he was on the air. It's like, hey, you still good to come on our show later today to talk about Big 12 Media Day? And he just goes, "LOL, yes, I'll hop on with you guys." I was like, all right, when do you want to come on? 3:25, 5:25 is like the earlier the better. I just need to I just want this day to be over with. So no, TC is awesome though. But that was a fun morning, man. Random morning. So.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so you've been playing a lot of college football, doing a lot of Notre Dame. What are you looking forward to about Notre Dame football? I know this is a Hawkeye show, but I figured we got to ask you a little bit. I mean, you guys got a new quarterback, right? Riley Leonard is coming in.
Yeah, transfer from Duke.
Yeah, and then who else? Give us some other names because I feel like here in Iowa, we don't really know anything about Notre Dame football.
Mitchell Evans, the tight end, got hurt last year. I think it was actually – was it during the Ohio State game or after? But he's probably – he's going to be a first-round draft pick. He might be the first tight end overall selected. He's an absolute stud. They went hard in the transfer portal from the receiver end, which they needed to. They needed to revamp their entire receiver group, and because they got rid of their receiver coach in the offseason. And so when he left, like their young freshman and sophomore receivers, the guys that showed promise last year for an already like depleted receiving core, they bolted. And so, of course, in today's day and age, guys go in the transfer portal, especially like essentially almost an entire position group going to the transfer portal, everyone loses their mind as far as the fan base goes. And so they had to attack the transfer portal. They did. They have Jordan Faison, who is, you guys should Google him. He's one of the craziest stories ever. He last season he was a walk-on football player. He was on scholarship, full ride scholarship for lacrosse. So he's on the practice squad at Notre Dame. And it was like 2 weeks into the season or whatever. And he's on the practice squad making what was a really, really, really good Notre Dame defense look stupid. And so Marcus Freeman's going, who the hell's this guy? Why isn't he playing receiver for our ones right now? So he ends up getting some work with the ones, has a great game against Louisville, who ended up beating them, but has a great game against Louisville. And then ultimately gets taken off lacrosse scholarship, gets put on full ride scholarship for Notre Dame football, then has a great year, ends up being the bowl game MVP. Then he just wins a national championship with Notre Dame lacrosse, which is wild, right? And he's become just a fun story and one of their top receivers. Tyler Buckner, who played quarterback at Notre Dame, started the game against Ohio State 2 years ago to start the season on the road, who transferred to Alabama last season and played, I think he started the second game for Alabama against USF. He came back to Notre Dame to play lacrosse because coming out of high school, he was the top lacrosse player in the country. But lacrosse player be quarterback for Notre Dame, he wanted to go play quarterback for Notre Dame, right? The like audacity of being just an athletic freak. But he's back now. He's on scholarship for lacrosse, and now he's playing receiver for Notre Dame on football as essentially like a walk-on. So like I would say the receiving core is revamped. They got a kid from FIU who is their top receiver. They got a kid from Clemson who is their top receiver. So I mean, they did what they needed to do offensively. The running back position is loaded. They have so much depth there, just like they did last year. You lose Audric Estime to the NFL, but they're loaded. They're deep. They're about 3-4 deep at the running back position. Defensively, might have the best secondary, if not the best secondary in the country, or one of the best secondaries in the country. Benjamin Morrison, arguably one of the best corners in the country. He'll go in the NFL draft next year. He'll be a junior this season. Xavier Watts, who was he won the award over, was it Cooper? I think it might have been Cooper. For second, I forget what's the award called again? I can't remember.
Thorpe Award for the best defensive back.
Yeah, so he won that. He won that last year. He's coming back. I mean, that guy had like a pick six every game. It was crazy. I think USC he had a pick six. He had another interception. He caused a fumble. He recovered a fumble. Like in one game, essentially, almost wrapped up that award against Caleb Williams last year. So I mean, defensively they're going to be good, but the biggest thing that I'm excited about is they got LSU's offensive coordinator, who just Jane Daniels won the Heisman Trophy last year. So they got LSU's offensive coordinator, took him from Brian Kelly, which is even sweeter. And defensively, they're Al Golden, the D coordinator there. He's been there for the last couple of years, and he's been tremendous. So I would say it's college football playoff or bust. I mean, it's kind of like that every year for Notre Dame, college football playoff or bust. But this year especially, they don't have the most challenging schedule, but they do start the year on the road. Night game at Texas A&M. So that's an interesting one too. There's storylines with that. Mike Elko, who's the head coach now for Texas A&M, was the head coach at Duke. Riley Leonard was his quarterback at Duke, who's now the quarterback at Notre Dame. So fun little storyline there. And then of course, I mean, night game at Texas A&M to start the year. It's going to be a wild scene. I think it's the number one ranked stadium in NCAA football, the video game. So. But I won 30-10 to start my dynasty against them. No big deal. But yeah, it should be a fun season. I'm excited for football, guys. Like baseball is my number one love. It's been a tough baseball season for me. I went from watching every game for the last how many years of my life to this year I might have watched like 15. So it's so bad. But I'm just been trying to fast forward as fast as I can to football season. And I mean, really, if take the Notre Dame thing out of it and just look at what we have here locally with Iowa and of course Iowa State, I think it's going to be a really fun football season for both universities, for both fan bases. I think on the Iowa side of things, I think 11-1, 10-2 is really realistic and really should be the expectation. And on the Iowa State side of things, and I know people probably don't want to hear about it, but I think 9-3 or better for the Cyclones, and that's kind of where I'm leaning. Now, I'm not saying that can't change here in the next month when I look at my prediction side of things, but that's going to be a really good Iowa State team. I mean, you get 19 starters returning. I don't see. I think Rocco Beck is going to take a huge progression forward, along with Abu Sama. And again, not saying that it's not going to go south either, but those guys are very talented, and I think they're going to have a really good year. But looking at Iowa, shit, man. That as long as Cade can stay healthy, but the good thing is you got Sullivan now as the backup, and that is something that was crucial for Kirk and this coaching staff was they had to go get a quarterback in the portal, no matter who it was going to be. And so I remember when Sullivan entered the portal right away, Iowa was linked to him, and Tim Lester has a good relationship. I believe recruited him at Western Michigan. So that was kind of going to be a slam dunk. And then it was like, okay, when is it going to be official? But I'd be lying if I didn't say that I wasn't excited for them to possibly have General Booty as their backup quarterback.
Man. Dude, General Booty would have been the best.
The fun that we could have had with that one, right? And I really the entire state would have had fun with that. But no, I think Iowa's in a good position, man. I think Caleb Brown will probably miss a game, I would assume, coming up, but that'll be early on. So probably miss the first game or at least a half in game one. But Caleb Brown solidifying that number one receiver slot. You saw what he was able to do last year, and he's an electric player. And then obviously the tight end position I was always really good at. And defensively, you know that they're going to ball out. So I think 11-1, 10-2 for the Hawks. And I mean, you don't know where the Big Ten's going to end up, but I mean, if you're a Big Ten team and you do well enough to get into that Big Ten championship game the way the conference is set up now, I mean, you got a really good shot to set yourself up to be able to make that 12-team playoff, right? The Big Ten and the SEC are probably going to, as long as it's competitive, right? Like, and it's obviously you're going to get one team in no matter what because they won the conference championship game, but shit, man, if you go 11-1 and you end up in Indianapolis, you gave yourself a hell of a chance, no matter how it goes in Indianapolis, to maybe sneak in as that 11 or 12.
Yeah, the Big Ten and the SEC really kind of bullied the rest of the conferences and the structure of how many teams get in per conference.
Yes, they did.
The interesting part that I look forward to following this season, Sean, is how you're going to select two teams to play in your conference title game when you have 18, 20 teams in your conference now. You know what I mean? Like, it's going to be based on college football playoff rankings, and you're going to have like this list of like maybe 4 11-1, 10-2 teams, whatever they end up being, right? Of how they're going to grade those teams, that didn't necessarily play each other.
They're going to, you're right, Drew. Like there's going to be so much math. Like I'm personally not looking forward to like the end of November and like beginning of December, because there's going to be so many scenarios and different things that you have to look out for. And more than likely, just like everything else, it does work itself out. But there will be probably some sort of issue with, let's just say Iowa, for example, right? Like Iowa has the same record as Penn State or Ohio State or Michigan, and then it's going to go into, well, what was their home and home record? What was their away record? What was their games against each other? What happened there? There's going to be so many different scenarios. I don't get paid enough money to even start to even think about it or dive into it. But I think also at the same time, you run the way the Big Ten's set up now, and you run a chance of, man, you could have Michigan, Ohio State in back-to-back weeks.
Could.
You could have 2 games in a row, Michigan, Ohio State. You could have Michigan, Penn State, Ohio State, Penn State. Oregon, throw Oregon into that conversation now. I'm not going to throw Washington because I don't think they're going to be that good this year. But, I mean, there's so many different options with what can happen. But it's going to be interesting. You're not wrong.
Or you could be USC and have to go to Iowa and Wisconsin back-to-back in late November.
They fucking suck. Fuck them.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, they do. I know. I forgot you hate them, but like, what I mean is,
excuse my language, by the way. Excuse my language.
The Bush.
That's the beauty of doing a podcast, though. That's the beauty of doing a podcast is I can say that. I can't say it on the air.
Yeah,
we do have the explicit E on our podcast on Spotify, so we're good to go, man.
All right, there we go.
You and Drew are racking up the F word counter.
Yeah, but I'm sure someone's would love to clip that, and when Iowa plays USC, and it's like, oh, F them, F those guys. No, but
we might have to have Chris Shipley do that for us, to be honest.
Yeah.
But,
give me a beep. I want to be beeped. Give me a beep.
Okay.
Beep on. Have them edit it. Put the beep on there.
Oh, you just
like
gonna be? Well, what if we just steal from the Andrew Downs playbook and do unnecessary
censorship?
Oh,
Yeah.
This one is necessary, though.
Yeah, I know. I know. What I mean is that these West Coast teams are going to struggle with playing in cold environments in late November, I think, at least early on, until they figure that out.
You know, it's funny. Like, I want to think that. I want to think that, and I've seen it. Right, like USC is not new to it. I would say because of the fact that for every year, for I don't even know how long, or every other year, they've been going to South Bend in the middle, in November.
Yeah.
So like they're used to playing in 45-degree weather. Have they had a lot of success doing it? No. But I think the teams that are going to be like the adjustment will be like UCLA. Like UCLA is going to have a massive adjustment because they didn't do that, right? USC at least has had a game in October, November in the Midwest. UCLA hasn't, right? Anytime they've been all on the West Coast. So like Washington, they play in cold weather, like they're cold rain weather. Oregon, same thing. So I think from that aspect, you're not going to see massive adjustments, but I would love to see USC in a snow game in Iowa City. Please give me that. Like that would be tremendous to watch. Yes. But yeah, I think those would be the 2 schools probably that would be affected by it most. Well, I don't think Washington and Oregon will be affected by it. And USC to a point would be affected. But UCLA, I think, will have the biggest adjustment when it comes to the weather here in Big Ten country.
You know what, Sean? You're right. Fuck USC. I was hanging 45 on them. They keep
already
like a defense.
Already done it before.
I'll make this promise.
In the Holiday Bowl 3 years ago.
Nate Stanley, Emir Smith-Marset and the guys.
That was probably my favorite sound off that I ever did was that USC bowl game because I hate those mother effers, man. I hate everything about them. They're the most annoying. Like they play that stupid song every time they get a first down and the March of Troy or whatever the hell they want to call it. Their cheerleaders are stupid. I hate everything about that team.
That's great.
I hope Iowa whoops that ass, please.
Well, the best part about that Holiday Bowl was Leinart and Reggie Bush were on the halftime show for Fox. And they had to just sit there and take it as Iowa was just crushing USC. It was great.
The whole pre-show swept the screen with SC fucking predictions. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
People don't forget.
No.
All right. Well, I'm looking forward to basketball too. I know we're going a little bit longer. What do you think about some of the new guys that Franz brought in?
It's the same thing as I always think about. Like, I don't know anything about these guys. I mean, guys like Eichholt and Chad Lysko. Yeah. I mean, all indications are like they look good in practice, so that's cool. But we're not going to know what these guys are able to do. I mean, I have the same thought process with the Drake team, right? Like, I'm not going to know what this team looks like until December, or when you get a lot of new guys, essentially, I mean, it's not like you can look at what they've done in the past, but so many of these guys come from lower level conferences and stuff like that. So you have an idea of how they can play, but you really don't know how it's going to mesh when you get into conference play or you get into playing like legitimate contenders, like say in Iowa State, right? Like you don't know how this Iowa team is going to match up against a team like that until it's played. So from the basketball front, like Owen Freeman is going to be, you know what you're getting from Owen Freeman. He's probably going to be held a lot better. So like you have guys that you know what to expect, but the guys they brought in, I mean, I could read David's articles all I want. I could talk to David. I could talk to Chad and read all their newspaper articles. Like, at practice, they were throwing hoops. Well, that's great. The damn Chicago Bulls are throwing hoops to practice too, and they suck. So, like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that I was going to suck, but you know what? Like, it's hard to get excited about practice stuff. And that's like the biggest thing that we're about to fight here for the next month, because all we're going to get is reports going into the football season about practice and how well the offense looked against the number 2 defense. And Cade McNamara hasn't missed a pass in 7-on-7. All right, well, that's great. Do it against Iowa State. Do it against Washington. Do it. Like, that's the stuff that it gets very hard to. I'm a victim. Like, I do it all the time. Heather makes fun of me all the time because I get so hyped up about stuff that, well, we don't know what this team's going to look like when kickoff happens. Yeah, but David just said this. They had just had the greatest 2-minute drill of all time. So, like, let's go. I was putting up 35 points a game this. So I mean, if you go off of hype, every team's going to have tremendous seasons, and the guys that they brought in the offseason, whether it's football, basketball, are going to be. I'm falling for it with Drake basketball right now. Like Admire is putting out, like, man, these guys are starting to come together and all this. So I'm starting to get excited for the Dogs, and realizing today with them winning the pregame hype video of the season in the Missouri Valley Conference, that everybody in that video outside of one person is gone. So, like, that's a harsh reality as well. So I don't know. I would say you can be positive and look forward to basketball season, but I mean, I don't think it's not going to be a season that Hawk fans are going to remember for years to come. I think it's going to be a little bit better than last year, right? But I don't think it's going to be anything that you're going to be like, man, this was the greatest Hawk season ever, man. We might not have made it to the Sweet 16, but remember, I don't think it's going to be a season like that. I think you just need to focus. Hawk fans need to focus on let's try and get into the NCAA tournament. It's not a season. It's not a season like when a couple years ago with like Garza and those boys, and it was, man, Sweet 16 or bust, right?
And the only team that got a COVID pass we had to play in the second round. Yeah, that was pretty cool. Oregon and Bowl just trucked us.
Just ran them off the gym.
That wasn't Bowl, actually.
It wasn't Bowl?
No, it wasn't Bowl.
Oh, okay.
That was like Chris Duarte and some other guys.
You're the basketball guy in the program, Andrew. I'm not. But I did see Caruso for Giddy, Sean. What the hell is that?
Some Bulls being Bulls.
Oh yeah, okay.
Bulls being Bulls.
There's a trend here. There's a trend here.
Think about this, right? The Bulls have a franchise player in Zach LaVine, who they gave a max contract to. The Bulls are now trying to trade said franchise player to contending teams. Said contending teams are pretty much giving the Bulls a middle finger. So what does that say about your franchise player that you gave a max contract to? It means he's not the player you thought he was going to be or think that he is. And so I think there's a harsh reality when it comes to the Bulls, and they're in the rebuild process right now because they're in basketball hell. They are in NBA basketball hell. They're not good enough to go far in the playoffs, but they're not bad enough to not make this play-in tournament. So you're going to constantly be being mediocre where you're playing in the play-in tournament, but you're getting the number 11 draft pick. Never going to do you any good. You also play for a owner that will never spend money on anything. So And frankly, and I've said this on the air, the Bulls don't have to. They don't have to, because no matter how good, no matter how bad that team is, the United Center is going to be sold out every game. They're going to be top 5 in merch sales every single year, because they will always and forever live off the Michael Jordan years. You go to the United Center, there's a Michael Jordan statue, right? A little kid gets a picture with it. He becomes a Bulls fan. Now Dad, we got to go to every Bulls game we can every time we're in the city. And it just turns into, yeah. I could go on an hour.
The pregame music, the running of the Bulls in the downtown.
You buy into it, man. You buy into it all, and then you realize very quickly that that owner, Jerry Reinsdorf, nothing's going to change. Nothing's going to change. Their best shot was those Derrick Rose years, and it's a shame that those years were derailed by injuries, because those teams will always have they never won anything, right? Like, they made it to the Eastern Conference Finals. That's as far as they went. But those teams will always be important to me, because those were some fun years for me as a fan, with Rose and Noah and Dang and just the run that those guys had.
Korver. Don't forget my guy Korver from Pella, Iowa.
Oh, no, Korver was a huge
I love those teams because Korver was a part of it as well, so it was great.
He was a huge part of that team, and thank God, because they had no one on that team that could make a three outside of him. So, like, those were the Tibbs days, man, where you're sitting there, you're holding teams to 60 points, and you're winning 65-60 in the damn NBA. But it was, all right, Derek, get 18, drive the lane, maybe get Dang some points and Noah some points, and then if need be, we'll bring in Korver to hit some threes. Right,
Boozer. Boozer was great. Carlos Boozer.
Yeah, Boozer. Yeah, nothing like going into the summer of 2010, where it was the biggest free agency year ever, and the Bulls walk out with Carlos Boozer. And you want to talk about like massive disappointment from a fan base. Now, Boozer ended up playing, like, he was fine in his role, but a free agency class of LeBron James, Chris Bosh, Dwayne Wade, and just a plethora of players. And the Bulls were like, Carlos Boozer, buy his jersey.
Carmelo was available.
Middle finger to you guys, all right? Like,
yeah.
So.
God, wasn't Kevin Durant available too?
I don't know if Durant was available going into that off season.
He wasn't a part of that huge.
No, he was a part of the next. I think a couple of years later,
the next one where LeBron went back to Cleveland and all that was where Durant was part of all that. So,
this show has been all over the place, and I love
it. Welcome to the summer.
Yeah, it's turned into the Sean Roberts Variety Hour.
Yeah. Now plan it for 3 hours. Plan it for 3 hours.
Sir, you get paid to do that. We don't.
Yeah, not wrong. You're not wrong.
Well, any last things you want to plug or talk about, Sean, before we let you go?
I'm going on vacation next week, so that's fun. I don't have anything to like play. I think just I love what you guys do, and I love Three Beards Media. I think I love Chris, man. He's such a great dude, and he's been fun getting to know over the years, and like you guys as well. And just I love supporting you guys because you guys are passionate about it, and you don't try to be things that you're not or anything like that. Your guys are just like, hey, we got a microphone, let's fucking talk some sports. And I love that so much. And anytime I can support you guys or hop on and do a podcast, I want to support you guys and do that. And so, and for anyone listening that listens to KXNO, thank you. There's a lot of things that are changing at KXNO, and
breaking news.
No, I'm not going to break any news, but it's a lot of good things, and it just goes to show you, and it'll make more sense when everything happens and stuff like that. But it just goes to show you, because of the listeners and guys like you guys, and we don't have the opportunities that we have and that stuff without our listeners. So good things are on the horizon, and I'm very appreciative of all the listeners and for you guys. And anytime you guys want to have me on, I'm game. As long as if I can make it work with my schedule, I'm game. So
awesome. Hawks Eye View sound off post game Iowa Hawkeye football.
I'll tell you what, if you catch me after a Notre Dame game on a Saturday, there's a good chance that I'm thoroughly intoxicated. That could be a fun time. It also might scare my bosses just a little bit of me hopping on a podcast and doing that. But I think that I might be down for one of those.
Okay.
Fun.
We bring on Derek from New Sharon, so he just overshadows you just a little bit.
Yeah, just have Drew message me, and I'll give him where I'm at in the day, and see how it's going. So I would love to do one of those. So
to plug one of our other Three Beards Media show, I think you're going on with Teddy for the Mount Rushmore show in a couple days.
Sunday, yeah, we're doing it. Friday, I'm out at Wild Rose in Jefferson tomorrow, and then doing the show, and then I got roped into, I think, doing stage announcements for Quiet Riot. So I think that's what I'm doing out there. But yeah, so Friday wasn't going to work for me, but yeah, Sunday I'll be on with Chris and Ted, and yeah, so I'm making the rounds here. Who else do I need to go on? Like, what other shows do I need to go on here?
Yeah, do you need to go back on false starts or Old Man Strength or anything like that? I mean, just do all of them in 1 week. Right?
I'm doing a media tour with you guys.
Yeah, the Sean Roberts Media Days here at Three Beards Media.
Talking about anything and everything.
Yeah, love it. Well, thank you once again for just taking time to come on the show. We appreciate you a lot, Sean. We both love listening to you. So keep up the good work. Keep up everything you're doing. And we'll hope to have you back on during the season then, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate you, boys. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean.
All right. Well, that'll do it here for us here on the Hawks Eye View. And we will be back in probably a couple of weeks with some football preview stuff in August and talking Iowa football. So thank you as always for listening. Have a great night and go Hawks.
Go Hawks. Let's go.